Thank you so much, Alex. It's an honor for me to be part of this program for many reasons, but thank you for all of you are doing and the importance of this issue. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about it. Certainly from a position of the fact that we are a very large employer in Jefferson Parish, so more as the parish president on the public side. But what I love about my job is, I am in a management role for our parish administration. With thousands of people who are in our workforce. And this is an area that is near and dear to my heart, obviously. The interesting thing about this issue is that, when I was running for parish president and during the campaign, so many people, and interestingly, more men would come up to me and say, oh, you could be the first female parish president, which I thought was interesting, and I could see the hope in their eyes from it. So when we got in office in January, from an operational standpoint, and I'm glad to be back on the operations side of the house, we reorganized the chart. We completely reorganized the chart. And we made a very deliberate decision, rather than bringing in a lot of people from the outside, which I certainly could have done as a new administration coming in. I made a decision to look from within. I think it's important as an organization that people know that hard work is going to be recognized, and that you have a way to elevate yourself within an organization with hard work and building a reputation for good work. And so we made that very concerted effort to look from within. And we have a very diverse workforce, but all I wanted to say was, I want the person that makes sense to be the next leader. So if someone was working hard, I had a lot of conversations. Some of the people weren't even ready to be a director. And I said, well, do you want somebody else to come in and be your boss, or do you think you have your department's best interest? And with those decisions we made, and some of those people I didn't even really know, but I looked at the leadership that was already here and elevated those folks. And I'm proud to say we have the most diverse workforce in the history of Jefferson Parish on the administrative side. And so it was a deliberate decision to bring forth the talent, but it wasn't a deliberate decision to say, I want this many women of color. It wasn't that decision. It was a decision to say, let the talent rise. And when we made that decision, we're happy to say we are the most diverse administration to date. And so that's something that we're very proud of the actual facts and the numbers, but also how it just came to be is that people have worked really hard, and we're really glad to be an organization that recognizes that. Another thing we did when we came on board is we know that people understand what government services provide. People like you, people who are in the know, people who are part of a designated business group, people who are involved in a civic association, people who are maybe some of the nonprofits that we work with. That segment of the population knows what we do in Jefferson Parish, or kind of the inside group. But my concern was that Jefferson is so diverse, people with all different backgrounds, some people who English is not their first language. They pay taxes, they pay sales taxes, they're part of our community. Do they know what government provides to them? Do they know what Jefferson Parish government means to them? Are they making use of all of the benefits that we can provide, or the questions that we can help them answer to improve their quality of life? And when I thought about that, I just felt like there were pockets of the parish that might not know about our services. So we converted one of our positions to be a cross-cultural coordinator, to get out into those pockets of Jefferson Parish, to make sure they understand what we have. And we hired a woman, very, very good hire we did, Daniela Bello. She is of Hispanic background. She speaks Spanish. So we have been able to engage with the media, the Hispanic media, which is my concern was like, do those people, people who speak Spanish know when we evacuate? Like life and death kind of decisions, are they in the loop on that kind of things? Or do they always have to rely on second and third hand information to get very critical information, especially any information, but especially during hurricane season time, those kind of things. Danielle is also working with the Vietnamese community. So not just the Hispanic community, the Vietnamese community, the Middle Eastern community. She's really reaching out there, even in this COVID world. And even really, you know, as we approach, and just as a reminder, I always got to get this in, our census deadline is coming up at the end of September, really reaching into those communities to get the word out about what we do. So diversity and inclusion has been something that it's been on our front burner, not because it's the new, and it is good that people are talking about it but it's just, we're doing it because it's just the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do, that all people in our community should have opportunities for what we want in Jefferson Parish, an opportunity to have a good living, a safe place to live, and be part of this community. So it's the right thing to do. I'm glad that we're even having these discussions openly now. It's not something on the back burner, that it's something that it's goals that we need to reach. It's constantly trying to tell ourselves that we're doing the best we can with this. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so proud that you all have invited me to be part of this program.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was very informative. I did not realize all of the things that you've done with your staff and your team to make sure that this issue was at the forefront of the administration. So thank you for that, and thank you for presenting today. Do we have just maybe 2 minutes for some Q&A if people have questions?
Absolutely, absolutely, Alex.
All right, so this is to anybody who has questions. You can either hit the Q&A chat box at the bottom or just go to the chat, and you're welcome to enter them there. If you raise your hand, I can also give you speaking permission. So if you prefer to do it that way, we are very flexible here. Let's see. Everybody's very quiet. You stumped them. Let's see. All right. Well, do any of our fellow panelists, do any of you have a question for Cynthia? All right. I guess one of my questions would be, is there anything related to this issue in this process so far? Oh, we have a question. Okay, I'm going to hold my own because I want to address questions from our attendees. So question 1 from Matt Broussard. Are there any steps that you're considering in the future to increase your diversity and inclusion?
So one of the things that I'll say, we have a diversity inclusion board within our parish administration. And because of COVID and because of all of that, that is something that we really need to, I met with them a couple times, and they didn't have enough of a budget, but we need to develop more of our programming with that board internally, in terms of highlighting different cultures, having lunches in on different days to really educate people on all the benefits of our different communities. And that's something that we're looking into right now, that we hope to, many things are on the front burner, but we really want to widen what we do on that diversity inclusion board. And that's something that, you know, I often get asked, like in May, because it's Asian Pacific Islander Month officially with the federal government. So a lot of the federal programs have these programs, and that's not required at local government, but that's where I want to get us to, is that we have these built-in programs that are part of our yearly calendar.
Thank you. Okay, Lynette's question is, please share with us 3 leadership characteristics which are important for leaders to have as components of their leadership toolbox.
So off the top of my head, I would say, you know, the word leader is a kind of word that people get the leader by having the title. So if you work somewhere, you're a manager, you're a supervisor, you're an elected official, teacher, you know, you're already a leader. But what I would say to people is that if you don't have to have that title to be a leader. You have, and I learned this early in a management class, you know, you have what you call those formal leaders, that they have the title, but often in organizations you have what are informal leaders, and they're people that naturally, maybe they're senior people who are always willing to take the time to help new associates or new people. They're always sort of the the workplace encyclopedia that everybody goes to for help. That's a leader, whether you have the title or not. So I would say don't underestimate the importance of that in an organization, of being the one who just everybody looks at as a leader, even though, and I can think in every organization I've worked with, a person that I relied on for help and assistance and completely thought of as a leader, even though they didn't have the title, because some of those people might not want that management role or might not want to publicly speak, or they're quiet, but they really do help a lot. And then the second thing I would say is, don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and give you permission to be your best self. I think when I was a young woman, I worked really hard, and I think I would kind of wait for someone to ask me my opinion. I think organizations are there I think organizations are always looking for good people, and they want professional input, even contradictory information. And I think you need to be in an organization that allows you to be your best self. And so if you were professionally and politely trying to further the organization, and if you're just constantly getting shut down or being told, be quiet, maybe you need to get in a different organization. And then the third thing I would say on leadership is that it wraps around your whole life, that you have to, in your personal life, you have to live it as well, in terms of how you are with other people, how you are in your private relationships, that leadership is there as well. And I do believe that sometimes traits at work are just as important to do in your private life, because I think we're all in a mix now. And so many of the people I know through work, but I also know in private life. So it's those qualities you never can turn off. You have to make a commitment to live your life that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think, do we have time for just one more?
Yeah, one more. And I apologize because we have a council meeting that I have to prepare for. And I'm sorry that you have such other incredible speakers and I'm not able to listen to everything that they have to share. So my apologies to the other slate of speakers. Again, I was explaining today, we had a council meeting that wasn't planned for, and I have to leave this for that. So.
Well, we greatly appreciate your time today. I thought there were more questions in the chat box, but it was actually just people saying thank you so much for your responses. So with that, I think we'll just say thank you and pass it over to Ronnie. But
okay, thank you, Ronnie, Shelina, Jennifer, Donna. Thank you. Maybe one day I can hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear your input on this matter. Thank you,
wonderful.
Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Ronnie, thank you so much.
All right. It's a pleasure to be with you guys, and I just wanted to start sharing my screen and also thank the parish president for what she had to say. So I want you to think about it like this. I'm kind of going to go rapid fire. I've got a couple of activities for you guys to participate in, but Live Well DEI. There are 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds in a year. If you think about that by Society of Human Resources standard, that's 2,080 hours for the average person working. If we look at that, we're going to say that maybe we get 8 hours of sleep. So that would be 1/3 of our 8-hour day. That's 1/2 of our waking hours. And the way I look at it is, that's a long time to be in a workplace where you don't have a great relationship or a workplace relationship with folks. So places where you can feel valued and respected for what you bring to the table. So when we think about DEI, I want to prompt you guys with a little bit of interaction here, and let's participate in a poll. I'd like for you to grab your cell phones, and I know many of you already have them in your hand. I'd like you to open up a text message to the number 22333. Open up a text message to the number 22333. Now, your initial message will be my name, as you see on the screen, Ronnie Slone, S-L-O-N-E. It does not have to be all caps, 651. No spaces, Ronnie Slone, 651. It should, when hit the send button, you should have a message returned to tell you, hey, welcome to my poll. Now, if it tells you're in somebody else's poll, such as a Veronica, then that means you misspelled my name or something and you didn't get it quite right. But Ronnie Slone, 651, to the number 22333. Hit send and you should be in my poll. We're going to use that in just a moment. And one of the things I want you to know when we do use it, if you're answering and responding to the poll with one word, it's fine. The Wordle will catch it. But if you try to do a phrase of something, make sure you put a dash between each one of the words. As you can see in the example, diversity dash equity dash inclusion. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want to see what your participation would be like, because this is a discussion. It's a conversation, and that's how diversity, equity, and inclusion should be had. So let's start off with the first poll. Give one word or phrase to sum up diversity and inclusion for you. Give one word or phrase that will sum up diversity and inclusion for you. Your responses should come up on the screen real shortly here, but put your one word or phrase. Unity. I see some folks have already gotten started. Fairness. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. Because see, we're going to be able to capture this information and actually give it back to the Live Well committee and the chamber for use as they see fit. This is a Wordle. As you guys may understand Wordles, the larger the word is, that means the more time it was submitted as a response. But valuing my contribution, you can see equity, you can see equality, you can see opportunity, welcoming, acceptance, lots of words there. And I appreciate you guys really, really participating in it. Together, unity happens to be the larger words. And someone I'm going to think forgot the dash because they have let's, and then there's nothing after that, but it's okay. You're welcome to repeat it and put it back in again. Let's see, welcoming, necessary, respect, okay, honesty, learning, caring. Yeah, great responses, and I appreciate you guys sharing those. So you can continue to put your responses in there, but I'm going to move us on because what I really want to do is walk through something called the diversity wheel. It was created years ago, back in 1990, by a couple of young ladies, last name Loden and last name of Rosner. And it just explains a little bit more about diversity, because I believe in order for our organizations to truly take off and look at things, we got to understand the concepts behind it. We got to understand language and make sure we have some common language about things. So we start off with the wheel with our personality, those things that we were hardwired with from birth, and maybe some of the characteristics, some things that the experiences we've had, the choices we've made. But our personality is kind of the it of us and the center of us, if you will. And then we have other internal pieces that come into play. You can see the ones that are listed there, our age, the ones that are upside down, our physical abilities and things that we can do, ethnicity, national origin. Those are things that really are considered somewhat the protected class. And that's how they appear to us as individuals. But what I'm doing is building upon what is our unique diversity. All these things are a part of it, to include these items, which are external, if you will. The internal items, we don't have control over. The external items, many times we do, but we may be at different places when it comes to our control. Our education, our appearance, I mean, we're able to change those things, our family status, geographic location. Those are many items that appear as a part of our diversity, all of these items. And then we get to the workplace. The workplace is so important, and that's why I appreciated you guys adding this to the summit and ensuring that we talked a little bit about it. Think about the organizational things. The parish president actually mentioned some of these when she talked about functions and titles and things of that nature, what leadership, the departments. All those items are a part of each person's unique diversity. But many times, where do we stay? We stay at personality and internal. We don't always look at the external and the organizational pieces. And then there's one more ring in this wheel of diversity, and that is the era. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going through all four of those right now. We've got our COVID-19, we've got an election year, and COVID-19 became a world event because it's a global pandemic. And then we got the cultural events that have permeated our news cycle, if you will, with racial injustices, and just the ones that have happened this year, but we know that they've been happening for years and years and years. And what I want you to see is all of these items, to include this era, they what? They push in on our unique diversity. We have to start considering the entire wheel, if you will, because everybody's coming to the table at a different place. So whether it's your personality, internal, external, organizational, or the era, we all have aspects of our unique diversity that are influenced by these items. So let's go back to the poll real quick. How do you feel when someone diminishes or devalues a diversity factor that's important to you? Everything you saw in that wheel, you could pick 3 to 5 things or 2 things, and maybe most of us could pick what? Quite a few, 20 of them. But how do you feel when somebody what? Diminishes that or devalues that in you? See, that's what this dialogue is really about. We all come to the table with those circles and with those aspects of the wheel, but somebody is devaluing certain things that we hold true to ourselves. And you know what? It's funny when I put this one up there, just to kind of get a laugh. You know, there's not a whole bunch of folks that's going to be an A, if you will. They're just happy that someone devalues something of them. But we start to move down to where we get the young man with the devil ears, if you will. We get irate, we get hot, we get hostile because someone is not valuing something that we value of ourselves, no matter which ring it was in. So we know that there are feelings that go along with this, and we should be asking ourselves, is that natural? Is that normal? Is that something we should be just regularly getting used to feeling? No. And that's what diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's really, really all about. So I got another question for you, but I'd like for you to go to the chat box with this one. The question is, why is DEI so important to the growth and sustainability of our businesses? I'd like for you to put your answers in the chat box. That way everybody gets a chance to see them. Why is it so important to the growth and the sustainability of a business or an organization? What do you guys think? Want to know what your thoughts are. Healthy balance. Expanded knowledge. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. It fosters productivity. Really appreciate that. Growing together. Diversity of thought. Yes, yes. Unique perspectives. Absolutely. Different points of view. See things from a lot of different sides. Allows you to come together as a team. Yes. Absolutely. Strengthens the team. Yes. This is a conversation. That's what diversity, equity, and inclusion is really about. Innovation, because you have the diversity of thoughts. Lots of different ideas. More ideas make for a better decision. It's called being informed and having more information and resources for that decision. Increased knowledge is the only way that you can grow. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And the chat box, you know, is open, and we can continue to accept some responses in there because it's our chat. But the question is, why is it so important to our businesses as far as growth and sustainability? And from the responses, we see the importance, but are we doing the things to bring it to a point where it permeates the values and the principles of our organization? So with that said, if you think about it, it's important for multiple reasons. You guys shared lots of them in the chat, but what I call the entrepreneurial mindset. It does increase your chance for opportunities, okay? Opportunities in multiple ways, such as to do business, to actually gain people in your organization? And what about resources, the things that you bring to the table? If you're currently using only one supplier, there may be another supplier out there that can what? Add to your bucket and can maybe even create what? A competitive edge and a competitive advantage. Think about how COVID got us to the point where our supply chain was really wrecked because everybody needed the same thing at the same time, and we were only using maybe one or two suppliers. But more so, leadership. It's important for leadership. You have to have an entrepreneurial mindset to grow your business and to sustain your business. Being ready to take advantage of opportunities, applying the resources that you have or the ones that you need to acquire, and then the right leadership, which could come from diverse backgrounds and diverse perspectives on things. It definitely helps with your innovation, your productivity, and business is relational. A lot of times we don't consider that. We don't think about that in the throes of working our businesses each day. Many times there's an old adage out there, are we working in our business or are we working on our business? If we're working on our business, it's really, really about what? That relational piece. But working in our business, it's also because 2,080 hours is a long time to spend with folks and not have some sort of workplace relationship. So really there's a sort of take-home message right quickly here, and that is simply that impact matters more than intentions. Your impact, the things that you're trying to get done. Imagine an employer who expects 100% from everyone, but only values their folks at 50%. The concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion can place the focus on doing things that will serve and protect your number one asset, which is the employees. So I'm going to keep us moving. I really wanted to hear this one also. Why is it so hard to talk diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace? So in the chat box, if you can add a couple of things about that, that would be great. And then I'll keep us moving and try to honor your time here. Why is it so hard to have the conversation? All right. Knowing the right questions to ask. Fear of offending someone, absolutely. That one pops out tremendously. Afraid to offend someone, yes. That is why we don't have the conversation. Many times it's because we feel we already know the answers. We always know the answers. So continue to put your answers in there. And I would like to sum up some of the things that you guys are putting in there. A lack of comfort. We don't have a comfort about the conversation. We've never had them before, and we're now being asked to have those conversations. Lack of time. Yes. One of my mentors say, never open up a wound that you don't have time to close. So we have to be mindful of the time we use to speak to people. Many times, some folks believe that leave it at home. Don't bring it to work. But you do have one brain. That same brain you have at home is the same brain you bring to work. And when we're permeated with social media these days, a lot of times the things that we see at home or see during our off hours does come to work with us. But there are strong emotions around it, and it has to be a strategy. It definitely has to be a strategy. So what I really wanted to leave you guys with today was simply the conversation of an inclusive environment where one feels welcome, respected, valued, and heard. Welcome, respected, valued, and heard. The idea is that we want to bring all of ourselves, or as the parish president said, our best self to work and be able to contribute 100% of what we bring to the table to the folks that are at the workplace, to the organization that has a mission and a vision, which we have signed on to. In the workplace, we have to be intentional about how we approach things moving forward. This is in the news, it is in our era, and it should have been handled many, many years ago. Our impact must match or exceed our intent. That's how we should be looking at it. It doesn't really matter whether you're in an all-white office, an all-black office, a little diverse, or a lot of diversity exists. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, it blankets your firm with a mindset needed to do what? Be sustainable and to be a good working team to create an inclusive environment. No one can escape the impending conversations that are out there. We all have a chance to kind of build a better community. And for those who need the numbers, I think I have something here. The Kellogg Foundation indicates that by 2050, the economy will gain $8 trillion simply by closing the racial equity gap. Again, $8 trillion by just closing the gap. And you close the gap with what? Diversity, equity, inclusion, the conversations and the actions that go along with it. Everyone wants that sense of belonging. And you can see what the bullets say there. Clearing the barriers for us, helping us to get ready for promotions and things of that nature. The parish president said something about deliberate decisions. She did the reorg and she looked at folks from within. That's what we're talking about, exploring what you have already in your organization. And she also talked about the most diverse administration. So we applaud her for that. The key about the diversity and inclusion piece is you have to have equity. And that's the one word that sometimes folks get confused. We confuse equity with equality. Equality means sameness and what we would consider fair. However, equity involves understanding and giving people what they need. There are employees out there that all they need is a little bit of a hand up, a little bit more exposure on something to make them better able to participate in the organization. Equity recognizes that when people come together in groups, power is unequally distributed. And some individuals have advantages and some have disadvantages. So we need to be mindful of this in our organization. In other words, we don't all start from the same place. Equity will help us get there. So we have to ask ourselves now what, and if you have the right size organization you need right now, you have exactly what you need right now, then fine, I guess this conversation may not be for you. But if you want to take a look in the mirror and see what's in your organization, I think all leaders should take that side. What you see in your current state may be okay for you. Your team may be exactly where you want it to be. You may be in a good place, or maybe you need a little bit of tweaking or a major overhaul. The idea is simply this: what you have in your organization right now, take a look at it. And as you're moving forward and you're bringing new people in your organization, be mindful of how you recruit, how you hire, how you onboard, and how you inculcate people to your organization. Because that's the only way a person's going to feel what? Welcome, respected, valued, and heard. And I will leave you with this, what I call the 3 L's. They are listen. You need to, listen to your employees, listen to what's going on in the market, listen to that outer ring of the era and what it's saying to you. You need to listen to the industry. You need to listen to what is being done in a diversity, equity, and inclusion field, if you will, because not one size doesn't fit all. You need to learn the language and the nuances of race. Many leaders out there do not understand race. What do the words actually mean? You got to tap into trusted sources and resources, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And then lean in. It's about action. It's about a movement. And what movement that I'm talking about? The movement of making your place, your employees feel like the employees that you've invested your time and money in, and help them to feel welcome, respected, valued, and heard. Humility allows you to listen. Listening allows you to understand and learn. Learning allows you to lean in and create meaningful actions. Diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't something you do in your spare time. It's critical each day. And I will say, resistance is futile. So thank you, guys. If there's time for questions, fine. If not, we can actually do those at the end, because I want to make sure my colleagues have an opportunity to speak up also.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. I think if let's have Jennifer start with the mindfulness activity, but I just want to repeat again that everyone is welcome to continue submitting questions throughout the entire webinar today to the Q&A and the chat. So if you have a question for Ronnie, go ahead, enter it in now, and we will address it. Again, thank you so much, Ronnie. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and we'll have time for more Q&A at the end. And now we will welcome Jennifer.
Hello, and thank you, Ronnie. Also, that was very informative. So we're going to start with our mindfulness activity. I'm just going to guide everyone through a brief meditation. So if everybody wants to get in a comfortable position, put your feet firmly on the ground. Just start trying to relax your body. And gently close your eyes. Let's start by taking this slow, deep breath in, filling your lungs up completely. Try to get the breath to your belly. Then when you exhale, exhale any stress or tension that you're holding in your body, just pushing it off of you. Let's do another slow, deep breath in, filling your lungs, getting the breath to your belly. Then exhale any stress or tension through your mouth. Do it one more time. Slow, deep breath in. And then exhale any stress or tension. Now bring your awareness to the top of your head and your forehead. Just make sure you're not holding any tension in your forehead. And with your eyes closed, just gently gaze your eyes onto your jaw. Make sure you're not holding any tension in your jaw, and it's loose and relaxed. Let's go to your shoulders. Feel like your shoulders are just kind of heavy and hanging towards the floor, not held up with any tension. Let's go down your arms and into your hands. Just make sure your arms and hands are loose and relaxed. Your torso, your chest, your back, and your abdomen. Make sure everything is loose and relaxed. Go down your hips and legs and feet. Just make sure everything is loose and relaxed. You're not holding any tension anywhere. Let's just take a moment to start feeling our breath. To breathe normally. But feel how your breath feels when you inhale and how it feels when you exhale. The coolness of the inhale and the warmth of the exhale. As you inhale, traveling in through your nose and into your lungs. And feel how the breath feels when it leaves your body. And if your mind starts to wander, it's okay, it's normal. Everybody's mind wanders and everybody thinks a lot. So just recognize the thoughts and then focus back on that feeling of your breath. And just take like a minute or two just to keep focusing on the feeling of your breath to try to put our mind at ease. Travels. Feel the coolness or the warmth of the breath. Thoughts come up, just acknowledge the thought and release it and focus on your breath again. I'm just going to take this time for yourself, putting the focus on you. And when you're ready, you can feel your body on your chair, your feet on the floor. And then slowly open your eyes. Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you, Jennifer. These mindfulness activities have been excellent. I feel like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I feel like I relax easier and easier every day of the week. So thank you so much for joining us again today. And,
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thanks. And now we'll pass it over to Shelina Davis.
All right, can you see Alex and all? Great. Well, thank you so much to Ronnie and to Jennifer and Parish President Cynthia Sheng for starting us off and setting us up for what I will share today. I want to shift a little bit and share what LPHI has been doing to institutionalize equity, diversity, and inclusion into our workplace. It's definitely been a journey that we've been on and will continue to be on for as long as I'm here anyway. But first, let me thank and acknowledge the Jefferson Chamber, Todd Murphy, as well as the co-chairs of the Health and Wellness Committee, Coretta Lagarde and Donna Austin, as well as Alex for inviting us to join today. I also want to share that I do have everybody always wants to know your connections. So I was actually born in Jefferson Parish in Metairie at Lakeside. And my parents, I grew up in St. Tammany Parish, but my parents grew up on the West Bank in Harvey. So Jefferson Parish is, I call that kind of my second home. So wanted to kind of share that connection point with all of you. So just to start, who are we at LPHI? So I'm Shelina Davis. I'm the CEO of the Louisiana Public Health Institute, LPHI for short. And we are a statewide community-focused nonprofit organization that's really committed to equity, to really ensuring that all Louisianans have a fair and just opportunity to be healthy and well. We employ about 100 staff, 30 to 40 of which we contract to the State Department of Health, and about 70 core team members work on about 60 to 70 different projects annually across the state to really help with authentic partner and community engagement, using data and research for action, project design and implementation, policy and advocacy, and also helping other community-based organizations across the state. We're headquartered in New Orleans and have staff in all 9 LGH regions who work on everything from tobacco prevention and control to building healthier communities to really supporting the whole health needs of individuals and families in Louisiana. I want to say that one of our staff members, Matthew Broussard, has been doing a lot of work with Jefferson Parish. Our team's been working, we're happy to be working with Councilman Byron Lee's office right now, the Chamber, JEDCO, and others on a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and an Urban Institute funded opportunity, primarily focused on the health and economic impact of COVID-19 in Parish Council District 3. And I also want to give a shout out again to the Jefferson Chamber, which has made supporting clean indoor air policy part of their legislative agenda for the last 2 years. And has been working in strong partnership for advocating for a healthier Jefferson Parish. So we look forward to continuing our work in Jefferson Parish. So I know that Ronnie earlier shared a definition of equity. I wanted to share this just to kind of add to that conversation. I really like this graphic and the definition that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation put out there. And you'll also note this language is in our mission of our organization as well. And it states that every person, health equity is where every person in a community has a fair and just opportunity to reach their full health potential, and that no one is disadvantaged from achieving this potential because of a social position or other socially determined circumstance. And I like to use this definition because, we talk about equity, and this could be a whole other session and a whole other class, but we're talking about equity because of the things that took place in our history, at the start of our country and beyond, that made it for us to require that equity be the lens that we use. And this equity lens really requires us to be committed and to be grounded in this approach. And it's an ongoing practice and self-reflection. And Ronnie talked a lot about that earlier. And Parish President Sheng also talked about that intentionality around this approach. It's also important as we look through an equity lens to ensure that we're looking at how and who we fund is aligned with the notion that all people are provided a just and fair opportunity to be healthy and well. And we know this takes a whole village of people, organizations, and systems. And I really like this graphic because it really kind of notes what it involves when we're talking about equity, in particular, achieving health and mental health equity at every level. And this is a graphic from the state of California, but it really involves transforming the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. And today I'm going to focus on where we work, or in Ronnie's diversity graphic, really focusing on like the organizational aspects by sharing some of LPHI's equity journey. So as I was reflecting on my presentation today, I was thinking back. I've actually I've been at the organization now for about 1 year and 4 months as the CEO. And as I reflected on LPHI's equity journey, I kind of put it in 4 phases that I want to kind of talk about and provide examples to you today. And those 4 phases involve establishing a common language, which Ronnie started off with sharing with us today, learning from others, and we're privileged to have 44 other public health institutes across the country that we can learn from. Also setting the intention and being accountable to our community. So I'll share about, how we did that. And then of course, not just setting the intention and talking with words, but also putting our words into action and into practice. And I'll describe that in a little more detail. So first I'll start with establishing a common language. So for us, we did that by staff training. So before I came on board, it was a requirement of all staff to go through some type of equity, diversity, and inclusion training, just to give folks the same foundation around race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And our staff went through a few different trainings, not all of them, but some of our staff went to the Undoing Racism training by the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. A few of our staff members went through a racial bias and microaggressions training that was put on by Access Matters. And a few of our staff went through the Campaign for Equity New Orleans groundwater and race equity inclusion training, which I'm sure many of you on the line have heard of, but I'll focus a little bit more on that training. I will also say there are a number of trainings out there that are free or that cost that are out there across the country. In our organization, we're more than happy to provide additional trainings that we have in our kind of inventory or library of trainings that folks can take. So for the equity, the Campaign for Equity New Orleans, this is a cool opportunity that's been done here in the city of New Orleans to make New Orleans the most equitable city in America. It's led by a group of organizers and really works to educate leaders across the city to address areas of systemic racism and build a more equitable future for New Orleans. And all of us went through a 2-day race equity training that really kind of provides a head and heart perspective. It provides us with all of the policies that were put into place from the beginning of this country to now, and the impact it has had on our country and the people within our country. And LPHI participates in this initiative, and we're actively involved in the health sector to really work with our colleagues in public health and healthcare to figure out how we can better integrate equity, diversity, and inclusion into the work that we're doing. I'll also state another initiative that we were a part of and fortunate to be a part of was through the Beloved Communities Equity at Work cohort 2019. Beloved Community is a nonprofit organization based here in New Orleans that really works to support organizations in both capturing and understanding where they are in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion from all levels of operation, from human resources to how we procure vendors, to how we recruit and retain our staff, and the list kind of goes on, and I'll share a little bit more details of where we are with that. And then also we worked over a 6-month period of time in partnership with the 3 other organizations listed here, Propeller, Live Oak, Wilderness Camp, as well as First Line Schools, to really learn from each other. Another important piece was really also engaging our board in this journey as well. And we had an invaluable experience going through this cohort and still are engaged with the Beloved Community organizations now. So the next is around learning from our fellow public health institutes and partners. So, as Ronnie and others share, there's lots of organizations that are at various levels within their equity and and diversity and inclusion journey. And I would encourage everybody to reach out to us or other organizations who are doing that, just to learn from their experience. So in addition to the partners that were engaged in the Equity at Work cohort, we also reached out to our fellow public health institutes that are all across the country doing really amazing work. And I wanted to highlight 2 of our institutes that we're working with, and also acknowledge that we are part of the National Network of Public Health Institutes, which is also doing a lot of work in sharing what we're doing around equity and diversity and inclusion. But the first is around the Public Health Institute we reached out to was Health Resources in Action. They're based out of Massachusetts. And they're really cool because they have developed like KPI, key performance indicators related to equity, to really, like, they developed their plan, they had an assessment, and now they actually have what metrics that they're tracking against to ensure that they had equity throughout many areas within their organization. And then also colleagues at the Michigan Public Health Institute, they're a pretty large institute there that have a whole center that's focused on health equity and social justice. So in addition to their internal policies, they also offer trainings to really help highlight racism and classism amongst the public health workforce, but they also provide the training beyond. So we've been really learning from them on how we do this in a better way for our organization, and how we engage with community members as well. So the next phase was really about setting the intention and being accountable to our community. So, you know, I decided after the murder of George Floyd to release a statement. And, you know, for many of us, it wasn't just George Floyd, but, you know, many of the things that are happening in our country around the value or devaluing of human life, particularly Black life. I felt compelled as a Black woman to make a statement that, you know, this was horrific, and that there's something else going on in our country for us to look at the image of the police officer's knee on somebody's neck and not letting off. Or, for example, when we talk about, even for me, being a Black woman who is educated, you know, I still have, for example, if I were to get pregnant, my likelihood of maternal mortality is higher than my white counterparts, even white individuals who are pregnant, who have lower socioeconomic status and education than me as a public health person. So what is that? It's beyond just healthcare access and insurance. It's more of a systemic structural thing in our healthcare system, or in our system broadly. And so I felt compelled to really release a statement saying, like, enough is enough, and we need to really be intentional about addressing systemic and racial equity in our country and in our community. And I really called for my colleagues and partners to do the same thing. And that was a statement. However, I committed really to doing and to putting those words into practice. And we did that in a number of ways. The first actually was the LPHI Equity Work Group, which is now called our steering committee. And this was actually created even before I came on board a few years ago with the Alton Sterling murder in Baton Rouge. Our staff asked, they really wanted a safe space to have these conversations about what was going on in our community. And with a commitment from leadership and myself, I said, equity is an organizational priority. Let's keep this going. So they have created a work group to really ensure equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout our entire organization, really gleaning from the lessons learned and best practices from Equity at Work, from all the trainings, and they've identified these priority areas within our organization to focus on in the coming years and months. And then their plan will be to develop a roadmap and really prioritize those areas and get all staff involved ahead of launching those projects. Next, I really believe investment is key. You know, we can say all we want, but if we don't invest in this, it won't happen. So, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to say I have a board that is 100% supportive of this. So we decided to fund a staff position that was dedicated to leading our equity work. Our director of policy and equity, Tiffany, Jeanminette, who started with us on September 1st, who's really leading out both our equity work as well as our policy work for the organization. And then also our board, we also have a pool of money to help support our equity journey with trainings and other things that may come up. And so I know we only have a few minutes. I'm just going to stop there because I know you all might have, I kind of glossed over a few, but I know you all might have a few questions about the how and who. But if you do and aren't able to ask those questions today, you can feel free to reach out to me or our equity lead, Tiffany Jeanminette, and our emails are listed there. So I'm going to pass it back on to Alex.
Thank you so much. I am going to switch us all to gallery view, and now we're going to open it up for Q&A with Ronnie, Shelina, and Jennifer. And I know that we're supposed to end at 1 o'clock on the dot, but we'll just see how the Q&A goes and play it by ear, I guess. We'll be a little bit flexible with that, but I just can't thank you all enough for joining us today and sharing your expertise with our attendees. So let's open up the chat and the Q&A. And if you want to raise your hand, I can also call on you that way. Any questions? Where can people go to find the training opportunities that?
I can start. So at LPHI, I had some listed on our on the PowerPoint slide deck, but also we actually have a resource document that we created for our internal use to share all the free opportunities that you can do, virtual, likely virtual. They were in person and virtual, but I'm sure they're virtual now, as well as those that also cost. So we're happy to share that resource with you if you want to email me at sdavis@lphi.org, where I'm happy to share that resource with you.
In addition, go ahead.
It's training that anyone can take, any individual? Okay.
Any individual, I mean, most of the time, especially if it's paid, anybody can take that. And then I'll have to, for some of the other trainings, it may be specifics, but I believe it's open to everybody. Okay. It indicates the audience and who can take the trainings on that document.
Thank you.
I was just going to add that Shelina mentioned CINO, the Campaign for Equity New Orleans. They have a lot of resources also, but they do a couple of different training sessions. The 2-day training session that's really in depth, and then there's something called the groundwater approach. So they are advertised very often, probably once a month, once every 60 days. And it's pretty much an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's done in the evening, if you will, so that folks can do it after hours, if you will. So there are lots of those types of entities out there, and then there's consultants out there that do diversity, equity, and inclusion work.
And I see there's a question, Alex, that kind of piggybacks off of what Ronnie was sharing around sharing the creative ways in which to begin the DEI conversation within the workplace and personal circles. And I can share a couple of things that LPHI is doing briefly. So the one is the race around the table that CINO is actually the lead of. And the race around the table is one night where, you know, people get their family member or friends together around a dinner table to talk about race. And CINO actually provides the facilitation guide. At LPHI, we've decided to do this for our organization, and we're doing it during the lunch hour from 12 to 2, actually this Thursday. And we're going to use the facilitation, and we have 5 of our staff, myself included, and a couple of our leaders and people from the equity work group that are going to be facilitating smaller group discussions around race and equity with that facilitation guide. And the second way we've been helping do this conversation, and again, I think because I've committed and encouraged staff to do it, we also have affinity groups by race. So we have a white affinity group, a Black affinity group, and an affinity group for non-Black people of color. And those groups are facilitated with staff to help for people to be comfortable and have conversations. And so we actually set aside time monthly at our organization on Fridays for like 2 to 3 hours for people to do their affinity groups and have facilitated dialogue around these conversations.
So there's lots of organizations with the affinity groups. One that I was introduced to many years ago that I thought was funny, ExxonMobil had one called BEST, and it stood for Black Employees Success Team. So it was a way that they could bring in speakers to help with professional development, to help a person of color as they try to climb the corporate ladder, if you will. But also, it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue, and it's not a debate. I think that there has to be a comfort level. Many times with comfort levels, it's about relationships, but sometimes we don't get relationships until we start having the dialogues. So there's a lot of pieces and parts that go into that. But if we look at it as a sort of a living room conversation, that's a great way to start. Understanding that it's not a one and done. That can get in the way for folks because, you know, there's strong emotions around this particular conversation. But start with someone that you know and trust. Again, we do this type of work, and that's our daily work. But there are others in the city that do that also, and organizations such as Shelina's organization and other nonprofits do put together packages where you can come in and get that training as something that they set up, and they want to make sure out there for their constituents and for the stakeholders.
Thank you. Maribel raised her hand. So Maribel, if you'd like to take yourself off of mute and ask your question, you're welcome to. Maribel, it looks like you're not muted anymore, but we can't hear you.
Sorry, I touched by mistake my raised hand. Sorry.
Oh.
And I was trying to pull at the cellular. Sorry.
I gotcha. Well, thank you for joining us today. No worries.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, did we already address, I see Matt put, how does DEI in the workplace impact education, healthcare, et cetera?
Well, there's one way to look at it is in the workplace, we spend only 8 hours in the workplace, but we also go to the ballparks. We go to Thanksgiving dinner with our families. So there are opportunities that you can learn some things from the workplace because the employers make that opportunity there. But then you need to go out and share that information. You got to go out and, again, Thanksgiving dinners coming up, but other places that you permeate, your churches, you name it. But the workplace teaches you and gives you an opportunity, just as well as this whole summit's about live well. But that doesn't mean you only do it at work. So it's about taking it outside. It's mama say, know better, do better. So once you learn something and you know how to do something a little better, share it with someone else.
Absolutely. Shelina, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I echo that. Representation matters everywhere, not just in the workplace, but everywhere we live, work, pray, and play. So I think just having that at the top of mind, it also helps, you know, as Ronnie mentioned, I like the note that he said, like it makes us feel welcome, respected, valued, and heard. And I think everybody wants to feel that way throughout any area of their lives. So I think it helps with that.
Thank you. Let's see. I think that we have addressed all of the questions that are there so far, but I would just like to ask sorry, Donna, did you have another question? No. I would just like to ask both Shelina and Ronnie, do you have any final comments or anything else to share with us that maybe you didn't address in your presentation, but that you would like our attendees to know?
Shelina, will you go first?
Sure. I mean, I would just say, this is like equity, as I shared earlier, is an ongoing reflection and practice. Like, we're not going to just wake up one day and be like 100% done with equity, our equity, diversity, inclusion journey. It's a journey, like it's lifelong. Like I believe in being a lifelong learner. So I feel like even in this phase, I may be further along than one person, but I'm not there yet. So I'm always thinking, how do we make sure this is a journey and that we give grace where grace needs to be given, and that, we all are making sure we're in this together and we can talk to one another in a dialogue, as Ronnie mentioned, and not a debate, because it's just part of, people are thinking about it anyway, so why not have those conversations, put them on the table so we can actually feel comfortable, feel more valued as humans within our workplace and in our communities. So that's what I'll leave you all with.
And I would just say it's about perspectives for a lot of folks. We were generationally, we were raised in different eras, if you will, and now we've got everybody in the workforce, everybody on social media. And what I noticed is that people are either extreme to the right or extreme to the left. And it's easier for a person to go from zero to outrage, just like that. It's about bringing it back to where I have a perspective, you have a perspective, and can I respect the fact that you have a way to look at it and I have a way to look at it, and neither one of us maybe holds all the answers, but together we can find what we have. And there's always a tendency, Alex, for people to find what they have different first instead of looking at what they have in common. And if we look at what we have in common, I think that will help bridge the gap. But it has to be a dialogue, and it is not a one and done. It has to be continued conversation. It has to be the journey, as Shelina just said. And grace goes a long way. Grace and forgiveness go a long way in this. One last thing. I think what happens out there is that folks are looking for, many folks are looking for, you need to acknowledge some things, and I think that's a good step too, is acknowledge that it ain't been what we said it has been for a very long time. It didn't just happen overnight. So acknowledge that and then move forward. It's not about resting on the past. It's about moving forward.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that I asked you both for those, because I just really enjoyed listening to your responses, and I hope that our attendees got something out of that as well. Donna, do you have any final questions or comments?
No, I thought that this was an amazing hour. It was good. I learned a lot. It was really good.
Thank you. Well, thank you both for joining us and for staying over time as well. Thank you to everybody that attended today, and you can tune back in tomorrow at noon for our final summit day, which is all about mental health. So we'll see you tomorrow at 12. Thank you.
Thanks, bye.